The morning sky above Neo-Venice gleamed like a spilled vial of mercury, and the city street below folded into itself, as if penned by an unsettled mathematician. Pedestrian overpasses twisted into underpasses. Stairwells looped back upon adjacent corridors, trams climbed vertical walls, and lampposts arched over roadways in impossible curves at the apex of this Möbius-hour rush. Commuters drifted through the ribbon of steel and glass without noticing the flickers between moments, glints of existence slightly out of phase with their own. Each traveler wore expressions of mild annoyance, craning their necks through twisting tunnels, unconcerned by gravity that wavered in unpredictable swirls. It was the kind of morning that shouldn't exist, yet did, and in one shivering moment, a ripple of anomaly quivered through the crowd. From that ripple stepped Kira, a time refugee born of centuries yet to come. Her eyes rimmed with starlit blue and worry, she moved like a shadow slipping through the crease of reality, her coat's hem shifting through layers of the city's warped architecture ahead of her. A glass wall looped back under its own base. And she ducked through the gap, lungs pressed tight against the possibility of detection somewhere in the jagged folds of Neo-Venice. The last chronofragment burned hot in the cradle of her palm, a shard of history stolen from a future that might never be. Every heartbeat echoed like a chime off fractured glass. Kira hailed a clattering gondola that shuddered along an inverted canal overhead as the vessel pitched. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored ceiling, a pale fugitive with a handful of shimmering motes swirling in her grip. The fragment hummed with temporal energy, each flicker promising restoration of a past erased, or collapse of countless tomorrows yet to arrive. She steeled her resolve, hope and fear colliding in her heart, dancing at the edge of oblivion. Pursuing her through the Möbius labyrinth was Arlo Quinn, quantum detective of the Chrono Integrity Bureau. He wore a tailored suit of graphite threads interlaced with phase stabilizers, technologies that anchored him in the correct timeline. His eyes were precise instruments, scanning each warped street, each half-formed crowd. For the ghost of a time travel transgression, he carried at his side a retractable chronolance, humming with inverse entropy. Capable of erasing anomalies from the fold of existence, he thought of Kira as an infection to be excised, a single aberrant sequence that threatened to unravel the whole. Quinn stepped onto a skybridge that twisted like a helix. Balancing on the edge of a neon-splashed void, he adjusted his tie, a small gesture of discipline in the chaos down below. The inverted canal gleamed with ripples of refracted morning light. He checked the chronotracker strapped to his wrist. The fragment's signature pulsed faster with every city bend she navigated. With a quiet breath, he leapt into the air, phasing his suit through the crystalline wall so that his feet struck the hidden street beyond. Another fold of the city swallowed him, and he pursued. Kira's gondola plunged through a tunnel where gravity reversed, and the water arched above the hull like a glass ceiling. She pressed her back against the seat, eyes wild, jagged skyscrapers tilted at improbable angles, windows dripping like wet paint. She knew Quinn would follow every bend, every twist, until he cornered her. And if he did, if she lost the fragment, then all she had sacrificed would vanish. The chronofragment pulsed in resonance with her heartbeat, bridging the gap between stolen memories and a timeline she might reclaim. Each pulse threatened an eruption of paradox. On the prow of a half-submerged canal bridge, Quinn extended his chronolance. It flared to life, trailing arcs of tangled photons that disassembled the air around it. His face was calm, betraying no hesitation. He remembered the official code: neutralize any timeline aberration. Kira was nothing but a ripple, a smear on the chronal fabric. Yet as he advanced, he felt the fragment's field twinge his own stabilizers, tiny shocks of doubt. Something about this chase felt personal. He shook it off and pressed on. Kira spotted a refuge, a collapsed overpass curling under its own span like a sleeping serpent. She leapt from the gondola as it scraped past her feet, landing in a shower of inverted beads of water. She ran, long legs eating up impossible distances as the street elongated behind her, and loops closed ahead. The fragment clung to her palm, warm and alive. She recalled the whisper of the fragment's origin. Restore me and you restore your life, but do this and you doom them. A voice from deepest despair. Millions of souls caught in tomorrow's collapsing reality. She forced her panic down. Quinn arrived on the same strand of metal 2 seconds later. He rounded a bend and confronted her in a narrow corridor of looping vitrines. His lance hummed, drawing a line of pure antichronon energy through the air. Stop. His voice cracked the reverberations, commanding. Kira whirled on him, chest heaving. The fragment floated between her fingers, casting prismatic arcs across her gaunt face. She stuttered, fighting for breath. You can't leave me like this. He tightened his grip on the lance. You're a temporal threat. Surrender the chronofragment. Behind her, the corridor flickered, the walls realigned, folding together quicker than. Surrender the chronofragment. Behind her, the corridor flickered, the walls realigned, folding together quicker than her mind could process. Kara's breath caught in her throat. She stood at the threshold of a collapsing passage. One wrong step and she'd be sealed inside. She tightened her grip on the small steel cube pulsing in her palm. The chronofragment time itself radiated from its core, soft golden ripples licking her fingers to the untrained eye. It was just a piece of antiquated machinery, but for Kara, it was the fulcrum of the universe's fate. Whoever controlled it could tear the past to shreds, reshape the future, defy death. A single spot of red light winked behind her, a sentinel drone, angular and lethal. Its photonic cannon humming, its voice echoed in her eardrum, monotone and merciless. Surrender now, it repeated. She exhaled, tasting metal behind the drone. The corridor bent again, shadows swarmed in the narrowing gleam of overhead lamps. Like ink dispersing in water, Kara surged forward. A foot of corridor remained. Beyond it, a crossway that split 3 directions, any one of which might be a dead end. The drone advanced, each servoware crisp in the hollow space. Kara scanned the triangular junction. Left, a maintenance shaft sealed by a hatchroom. Right, a transparent vista through reinforced glass into the ship's dank reactor bay. Straight ahead, the main corridor led deeper into the heart of the nebula's memory station. She didn't hesitate. Straight ahead, her boots thudded on grated flooring as the walls behind her slammed shut with a reverberating clang. She ran, heart drumming against ribcage. The drone followed, its cannon barreling a low hum, tracking her motion like a predator. Through the glass panel to her right, she glimpsed the reactor cores, swirling plasma coils, emerald filaments dancing in zero-gravity. Brilliant and cold, she yanked at the chronofragment. Time rippled around her fingers. If she could open a temporal slip, she might leap through seconds unnoticed, but uncertainties flickered. She didn't know the fragment's threshold in this environment, or if the station's chronal dampeners would snuff out her attempt mid-jump, and the drone would be quick to exploit any miscalculation. She pivoted at the next corner and hurled herself toward the maintenance hatch. The drone skidded around the turn, its servos whining with a shoulder thrust. Kara tore the hatch open, warning alarms shrilled, and plunged into the narrow service corridor beyond. Metal girders soared overhead, wires trailing like wounded serpents. The lights were dim, emergency amber. As if the station itself bled, she dropped to one knee, thumb pressed to the fragment's side. The cube's glow intensified, burning an afterimage on her retinas. She braced herself. A circle of refracted light formed before her, a shimmering disk that sucked in stray dust motes. Beyond it lay a corridor, illuminated in stark white. 30 seconds, that was all the window the device would hold. 30 shaky seconds, and then the temporal aperture would collapse. She glanced over her shoulder as the drone's silhouette entered the hatch. Its emission sensors glowed. There was no time to wait. With a howl of nerves and daring, Kara lunged through the portal. Light snapped at her skin, stretching it in every direction. Her vision blurred. Time tore at itself. Her bones felt illogical. Weightless. Then, a heartbeat later, she staggered onto firm ground. Dazzling white panels lined a new corridor, a clean, antiseptic smell, sterile. No flickering lights, no damaged girders. This place was untouched. Unaged, she swallowed. The chronofragment had opened a gateway, not just in time, but in the station's layout. She had leapt weeks into the past behind her. The portal winked out. The drone's warbled alarm reached her through the thinning temporal shell, distorted, as though heard through water. She had seconds before the fragment's power drained completely. A wall interface glowed ahead. She dashed to it, fingers dancing across the scientific font. She scrawled 2 words, temporal deck. The map shimmered. She saw a branching network of corridors, hatches, and maintenance shafts. According to this layout, she was in one of the station's earliest constructed wings. The chrono hub. That hub was where time travelers were calibrated, where the great experiments had begun. If she could reach the calibration chamber, she might be able to overwrite the station's chronal locks and hide the fragment deeper, maybe even find allies who understood its power. A high-pitched keening sounded behind her. Instinct flared. She slammed her palm on the chrono hub button. The walls budged, revealing a sloping corridor packed with conduits. She bolted inside as the outer door hissed shut. The corridor was deserted, silent but for her ragged breathing. The reinforced glass overhead offered a view of outer space. A tapestry of nebulae and burning suns. Stella Carina blossomed beyond in hues of violet and gold. If you didn't know how deadly the ship's experiments had become, it might look beautiful. She followed the conduits, praying the map was accurate. Around a bend, a pair of uniformed engineers stood blinking at a control console. Neither saw her. They wore silver jumpsuits etched with the station's emblem, a stylized hourglass. She slowed, ducked behind a bulkhead. Instruments beeped in ambient tones, logs filling at high speed. She peered around the corner. One engineer pressed buttons, another took notes on a digital slate. Stealth held. She crouched, breathing shallow. A plan formed. If she could access the console, perhaps she could interrupt the data flow, force a lockdown of the chrono hub doors, seal herself inside the calibration chamber, but getting to the console without alerting the pair would be delicate. She counted steps. 8 to the console, then one more into its blind spot tonight, she thought. Everything must hinge on timing. The engineers paused. The note-taker lifted his head. His eyes flicked across the corridor. Kara froze. Mid-step seconds past, the pair whispered. Kara's heart thumped. If she moved now, they might catch her shad. If she hesitated, they could finish their log, then step into the corridor to report a security breach. Either way, she'd lose her window. From her pocket, she drew a small grav sphere, a zero-G grenade if thrown. It would suck the neighboring air into microgravity for a heartbeat, disorienting them, but if she used it here, the blast could knock out the entire corridor's pressurization grid, potentially alert external alarms. Risky instead. She pressed her palm to the nearest conduit panel. Her fingers slid between the seams. She yanked it free. Sparks showered from exposed wiring. As she jammed her neural interface cable into the open port, the engineers would computerize the logs via this node. If she manipulated the data stream, she could manufacture a false intrusion. Report a faint hiss. The pressurization grid venting. She cursed softly. The conduit panel had collapsed. One of the air seals. The engineers looked up. Kara sprinted the last 3 paces, yanked at the console's duct port. It popped open. She shoved the Hibbett cable inside. Her heart pounding. In code data flooded her vision. Streamlines of code, chronal signatures, station hierarchies. She typed quick commands. Lockdown chrono hub sector C. Reroute all incoming protocol to quarantine. Her fingers flew the station's AI. Memory's eye grappled for control. Kara fought for the override. Beep beep, the engineers shouted. Swore an alarm klaxon sounded down the corridor. She ripped the cable free. Sparks showered down. Alarm lights flashed red and gold. She slid the duct back. Dropped to one knee. In 2 strides, she reached the hatch labeled Maintenance Shaft Gamma. The door slid open. She dove in as the main corridor behind her exploded in sound, a cascade of gunfire and pounding boots inside the shaft. Darkness swallowed her. She fumbled for her helmet's light. The maintenance walkway was narrow, just wide enough for one person. Bare pipes ran alongside. Footsteps above pounded like war drums. She pressed her body against the curved metal wall. Holding her breath, the hatch at the far end creaked. A silhouette appeared, the taller form of a security cadre. Riot armor gleaming. He stepped inside, scanners sniffing the stale. Kara counted her heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. He raised his rifle visor. Scanning. Kara forced her breath into shallow, silent drifts. The man clicked a button on his wrist console. Unidentified presence in force lockdown. He swiveled his weapon in patterned sweeps. Kara edged backward. Unseen, the walkway terminated at a junction of 3 shafts. She weighed her options. Left led deeper into the calibration wing. Right toward the station's underside. Up a ladder out to the observation deck. She needed to keep moving. Footsteps receded. The officer had moved on. Kara exhaled slowly. Her pack clinked. She pressed her palm to the panel that housed the chrono mapping device. Her link to the fragment's energy, the little pulse of warm light stilled in her pack's pocket. She slipped through the junction to the left, dropping to hands and knees in the narrower of 2 conduits. It was a crawl space barely tall enough to clear her shoulders. Her suit's radio crackled with static. A familiar voice. Kara Voss, come in. Are you alive down there? She recognized the calm, layered tone. Jace Brannon, rogue pilot turned time smuggler, her only ally in the memory station. I'm here, Jace, she whispered. Lockdown is in effect. I hijacked the consoles upstairs, but I've drawn every security guard in the sector. He exhaled, relief threading his static. Good work. I'm at the hatch on the observation deck. Head up, I'll cover you from above. She crawled faster, the tunnel growing tighter. Machinery groaned around her, every whine amplified in the narrow space. She reached a sealed hatch. She shoved it open. Light flooded in. The observation deck, a vaulted dome ringed with windows. Jace stood against a railing, holding a compact subsonic rifle. His hair was cropped. His eyes were sharp. Come on, he said softly. Kara launched upward, stumbling to her feet. The protection of the dome felt surreal. Outside, stars swirled in cosmic dance. Below, the reactor coils spun. She sprinted to him. We need to get to the calibration chamber, she rasped. He nodded. You forced the hubs offline, right? She fingered the chronofragment's holster. Its faint glow throbbed against her thigh. They might resurrect the AI override. We have minutes. He checked his rifle. Then let's not waste any. They raced toward a hatch at the dome's far end. Jace slung his weapon, buzzed the access panel. The light turned green. It slid open onto a flight of stairs carved directly into structural pylons at the base. A heavy metal door bore the station's emblem. The hourglass cracked in half, time spilling out. This was the calibration chamber. Jace tapped the panel by the door. Seal us in. His eyes met hers. One way in, one way out. Then what? Kara didn't hesitate. Then we lock it down, and I find a way to fuse the fragment with the core's chronal regulator. We integrate its power with the station itself. No one can steal a fragment you've married to a ship's essence. He frowned. Sounds risky. She traced the emblem with her finger. Risky, yes, but necessary otherwise. Her voice faltered. She pictured the sentinel drones tearing through time history. Undone. Jace nodded. The door hissed closed. Lights shifted from red to a steady blue. The hatch sealed inside. The chamber was circular, banks of crystalline conduits jutting from every surface like frozen stalactites and stalagmites at the center. A raised platform held the chronal regulator, a polished orb cradled in copper ribs from it. Threads of silver and gold wire ran to consoles set around the rim. Kara stepped forward, awe and dread pooling. She removed the chronofragment, held it up to the flashing data streams. A tremor ran through her. The fragment's light pulsed faster. It recognized its kin. Okay, Jace said. What's the plan? She placed the fragment on a circular receptacle beside the orb. The device hummed. Copper ribs slid outward. She felt a tremor beneath her boots. Time shuddering in anticipation. A staccato buzz came from the chamber's consoles. The station's AI, Memory's Eye, was fighting some external override, was pushing back. Red warning glyphs spiraled on the screens. Kara's jaw clenched. She took a deep breath. I need to synchronize the frequency. She jabbed at a console pad. Glyphs morphed into numerical strings. She slid the chronofragment along rails until it meshed flush with the regulator's interface. The orb flared with white-hot light. The entire chamber brightened. Kara stepped back. Wires crackled. Steam hissed as the fragment docked. Mismatched interfaces grinding together. Time energy swelled, arcing in a corona around the orb. Jace shouted over the din. We can't hold it much longer. A bolt of temporal lightning crackled, striking the chamber's northern wall. A deep rumble, like the station was splitting its spine. Kara pressed a palm to the regulator's glass casing, keyed a final sequence. Then a searing beam of energy shot from the orb, reaching upward through the ceiling's viewport. Time itself flowed out in a golden river, seeping into walls, conduits, the very molecules of the station. The pulse climaxed in a brilliant flash. Kara felt her knees weaken. Jace caught her under the arm. When the light subsided, the chamber was still. Only the regulator glowed faintly. Kara's chest heaved. The chronofragment had vanished. Melded. The orb pulsed steadily. The station's temporal core had absorbed it. Silence draped the chamber, then an echoing chirp. Memory's Eye rebooting. A soft female voice spoke through ambient speakers. Chronal anomaly stabilized. Temporal integrity restored. Kara exhaled relief. Jace cracked a rare grin. You did it. She leaned forward, touching the orb's casing. Warmth radiated. We did it. Beyond the sealed door, the distant echoes of alarms died away somewhere. The station's shutters reversed. The lockdown time would tick forward again, without threat of collapse. Jace put a hand on her shoulder. What now? Kara closed her eyes. She had saved history from fracturing, but at what cost? She'd gambled her life, trusted Jace, fused the fragment. Now she was bound to the station's chronal heart. No one could claim she was a mere smuggler any longer. She was its guardian. A quiet resolution settled in her bones. She nodded. We make sure this never happens again. Above them, the orb pulsed with steady light, an unspoken promise that time itself was safe for tonight. And somewhere deep within Nebula's memory, a new timeline began its silent rise.